It was a rough end to the night for San Diego's own Dominick Cruz in the UFC on ESPN 41 headliner. He suffers a fourth round knockout loss to Marlon Vera in their bantamweight headliner. Cruz was looking fairly solid in this fight. He was up 29-28 on all three judges' scorecards before the finish arrived, but he was not able to close this fight out. Of course, if it was a three-rounder, would have got the decision. Maybe Marlon Vera fights differently. Both of them fight differently if it's 3 rounds instead of 5. But nevertheless, the point is Cruz did have some moments of success in this fight, and I think it would have been extremely close down to the wire had we not get the stoppage. But we did get the stoppage, and now Cruz has his 2-fight winning streak brought to an end and kind of has to go back to a bit of a reassessment point. I don't think this fight showed by any means he should hang up the gloves or doesn't have anything left. I think you could raise some valid questions about the chin and the durability at this point, and he's been knocked down multiple times over the past several fights, so you don't want to see that as a positive trait by any means. It's actually quite concerning, but I think he still is able to defeat a lot of these bantamweights in the UFC. I know he has a lot going on outside the cage, the commentary career. He could easily transition into that full time if he wants to, but I think at the moment he probably still has some fight left in him, and just knowing the kind of guy Dominick Cruz is, I'd be very surprised if he wanted the last image of him in the octagon to be face planted after suffering that kind of knockout loss. But I'd like to see him take on one of his fellow legends in this division, and I think the two people that kind of stand out in that sense are either Frankie Edgar or Jose Aldo. Aldo, as we know, is fighting Merab Dvalishvili next week. If he wins that fight at UFC 278, I think he is much closer to the title shot than he would be with the fight with Cruz. That doesn't make a ton of sense at that moment, but if he loses that fight to Merab, I think the timing, and it would just be a perfect matchup between two WEC legends, former UFC champions. That's just a fight that I think people have been talking about for years, going back to the WEC days, and it makes a lot of sense. If Aldo does win that fight, I think a fight against Edgar, another former UFC champion and legend, would make a lot of sense too. We know Edgar planning to retire at UFC 281 in November in New York. Maybe Cruz wants to be the opponent for that fight. I think that'd make a lot of sense. I don't know what his timeline will be, what the injuries and the damage were coming out of this fight. Maybe that's too soon for him, but if they could make it work, I think that would be the right fight to make. So either way, I think some big fights still ahead for Dominick Cruz, and this is by no means a negative outlook on his career coming off this defeat. I think he still has much more left.